My girlfriend and I have been together for about a year and a half. We recently went to a wedding of a friend of mine. I was wearing a watch that my girlfriend had never seen before, and she asked me when I got it. I first told her that it's pretty expensive, so I only wear it on special occasions, without trying to mention that I got it from my ex. She kept asking where I got it from, so I told her the truth, that it was a gift from my ex-girlfriend. Her whole attitude changed for the rest of the night. I asked her if anything was wrong, and she would just dismiss it. I didn't let this ruin my experience at my friend's wedding, so I just moved on. The next day, she pretty much blew up on me about the watch. She told me how I could keep something an ex gave me and was accusing me of still thinking about her. She kept digging for something that wasn't there. I calmly told her that it is an expensive watch and that I like it without it having anything to do with my ex. She kept trying to continue the argument and told me to get rid of it because she is my girlfriend and I have to do that if she doesn't want it. I kept explaining that it is just a nice watch and that there is no reason to get rid of it. She kept on insisting, so to end the argument, I just told her that I would get rid of it if she bought me a new one. A couple of days have passed and she still isn't over the watch argument. She has been giving me an attitude and is being cold despite me wanting to move on about this. This petty argument is exhausting, and I want to get it over with. How do you think I should handle this? I think you handled it out correctly. If she buys you one, then you will be happy to get rid of it. Let's say you have dated your ex in your current apartment. Do you have to move out? Do you have to buy new furniture, etc.? I've, 24 female, been married to my husband, 39 male, for 3 years now. Our relationship is great, and it has always been this way. I'm extremely happy. Our little quirk is that we're a traditional couple. He's the provider and I'm the housekeeper and caregiver. Keep in mind that when I was looking for a long-term partner, I was specifically searching for a man willing and able to sustain such a lifestyle. I was never coerced into doing anything I didn't want to, and it has always been 100% my choice, out of my very own free will and consensual. Yesterday, I got a call from my sister, 26 female, asking me to go on a drive around town with her and hang out for a couple of hours. This happened around late afternoon, and I still had house chores to do. I haven't even started preparing dinner yet, so I politely declined the offer. She got extremely pissed at me and started insulting my lifestyle and husband, telling me nonsense such as, "You're oppressed, you're a victim, you shouldn't live like a slave," etc. I told her to not cross those lines because her judgmental attitude annoys the hell out of me, after which she asked me how I can even call myself a feminist when I choose to be a housewife for some man. I told her that that's exactly what feminism actually preaches, that every woman has the right to choose the way she wants to live her own life, be it a traditional wife or an independent businesswoman. She said that I shouldn't put my husband over my own family, and I told her that my husband is also my family now, and I have duties to fulfill. After that, she said that I should reach out to her after I realize how brainwashed I am, and then she hung up. We haven't talked ever since this went down. P.S. I can always hang out with her on weekends freely when my husband is not working, but weekdays are different. Edit. I think I need to clear some assumptions once and for all. My husband can make himself dinner and does so when I have planned social meetings out, or even when I go out on weekdays. Yes, I can do that. I'm not controlled by anyone. The reason I don't like going out on weekdays is because I love having a routine and following a schedule, and when I do something, I like doing a damn good job. That's why I call the chores duties, because they're how I personally see them, not because someone implies them as duties to me. I have hobbies and free time as well. I'm not housebound. I'm just very dedicated, the reason I denied my sister's request to begin with. Having 2 full days of mostly relaxation per week, the weekends, is probably one of the most satisfying feelings for me, which is why I like to not mix work and chores together. It would take away from that. I have a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering. I do freelancing on the side, as well tutoring in Japanese and Mandarin online. I have my own money. Besides the household money, my husband gives me an allowance, which I deposit in a personal savings account. I'll get alimony if we ever divorce. The idea of finding a wealthy man and becoming a housewife has become so popularized again, and it's really concerning to me. Obviously, spending your life in a toxic work environment isn't ideal either. Don't get me wrong, but all of the TikTok influencers hyping up this lifestyle never talk about the risk of being financially dependent on one person, especially when you view your relationship as somewhat transactional. And part of the transaction is generally that the women are hot and young and end up getting traded in for newer models. I am not saying a traditional relationship can't work, but this trend is alarming. Not to mention, I know what OP said about feminism is every woman having a choice, but there is a concept called choice feminism that is a little superficial and is worth addressing. Feminism is actually about the liberation of women systematically and interrogating societal pressures that shape our choices as well. It seems like there's more to the story here. Becoming a stay-at-home wife is absolutely a valid and wonderful choice. But if I was your sister, I'd be incredibly uncertain about that setup when your husband is 15 years older than you. You married, I assume, around when you were 21, so I'd assume you were fairly young when you started dating. To be honest, I'd hope to have a sister that would consider that all off-putting. My 30 female, husband's 31 male, sister, 27 female, has driven me to my wit's end, and I don't know what to do about this relationship anymore. Let's call my husband John and his sister Regina. For context, I've been in a relationship with John for 10 years. In the beginning of our relationship, Regina publicly criticized my appearance, saying that I have an ugly face. Granted, she was in high school when she said this, and I take it with a grain of salt, but this mean streak is a reoccurring theme. John and I were out to lunch with Regina to a large extent because she was in college in another state. But whenever we did see her, the mean streak showed. She is especially mean, borderline verbally A, towards her mom, who I think is the sweetest soul on earth. Regina and John have an odd sibling rivalry to this day. I still don't quite understand. Their parents definitely love both kids equally, but because John was a bad kid and still loved, I think Regina resents that she was perfect, but not loved more than him. She's desperate for her parents' approval and attention, but is increasingly nasty to her mom, who enables her. I think because John was getting all his parents' attention, to this day, Regina lacks self-esteem and is entirely dependent on external validation. She is obsessed with social media and getting likes, more so than the average social media user. She also has the habit of always talking about herself. Conversations with her are extremely one-sided, as it seems she never learned or had a desire to inquire about what goes on in other people's lives. John and I just figured she was young and had some growing up to do, but this still hasn't changed to this day. It's always the Regina show whenever she's around. Sometimes the things she says make me go, no, just no, in my mind. A few years ago, John and I moved to a new state to be closer to his parents. Coincidentally, Regina also decided to move to the same town. Putting our hang-ups aside, Regina and I grew relatively close as future sister-in-laws and neighbors. We grabbed coffee together, had regular girls' nights, and partook in shared hobbies. I still look back on this time fondly and felt like she had finally begun to mature. She was getting better at asking questions rather than monologuing about herself, with much coaching from both her parents. Everything changed after John and I bought our first home. That seems to be the event that reactivated the sibling rivalry. Regina started dating a man, 8 years her senior. Nothing wrong with that, but seemed odd to me that he was also her hiring manager. They moved in together after just a few months and were engaged 8 months into their relationship. Again, nothing wrong with this, but it might help understand future events. John and I had always planned to wed on our 10-year anniversary. Not to be outdone, Regina planned her wedding to be 1 month before ours. She tried to schedule it for my actual birthday, but her mom talked her off the ledge. Due to the closeness of our weddings, our dress appointments ended up being very close together, despite us not coordinating that. She invited me to her appointment to be the voice of reason, as her mom would want her to get something conservative when she wanted something more sexy. As much as I wanted to invite Regina to my appointment, I decided for it to be just my mother for a variety of reasons. Mainly because my mom is not the biggest fan of Regina's past behavior, and I didn't want to deal with any drama. Not being invited sent Regina into a rage, and she still found a way to make it about her. She excommunicated John and I for 3 months because me not inviting her was unforgivable, and because I chose a dress that was too similar to hers. They both had spaghetti straps and a deep V, not too uncommon in dresses, but otherwise they were totally different in terms of color, silhouette, applique, train, etc. This was all incredibly shocking to basically everyone in my life, including her parents, who thought Regina blew things completely out of proportion. Thankfully, after months of trying to reconcile, Regina and I hashed things out and got to be on better terms. But it never went back to the way it used to be with us regularly hanging out and stuff. Regina's wedding came and went. John and I were given the silent treatment once their wedding was over. Not even a peep from them a month later when John and I got married. This silence extended into family holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, where I'd reach out to Regina and I'd get one-word responses back. I decided to stop trying and go low contact, under the impression that Regina and her now husband were not interested in having a relationship with John and I. On my husband's birthday this year, after not speaking to us for over 4 months, Regina and her husband made a surprise appearance to hijack his birthday for their pregnancy announcement. See my post history. Regina did this fully aware that we struggled with infertility. She didn't even get my husband a birthday present when he got her an extremely expensive gift for hers. During this encounter, Regina and her husband had no desire to know what was going on in our lives the past 4-ish months. To fill the silence, John and I tried to make conversation. John awkwardly asked her if she planned to work after giving birth. After his birthday, they went back to ghosting us. We found out later through my mother-in-law that Regina took offense at John's question about getting back to work. John and I have been deeply upset ever since. It breaks my heart knowing all the progress we made in our relationship and lost it all. I feel like despite all our efforts, we will never have a relationship again with them or their future child. Her birthday is this weekend, and I don't even know if I should get her a gift, let alone wish her a happy birthday, because I know no matter what I will do, she will find a way for it to somehow piss her off. Do I even try anymore? If you made it this far, thank you, and I'd appreciate advice on what to do next. Move on with yourself and your immediate family. Take care of what matters to you. You're giving her and her family way too much power over you. She sounds disinterested. Let her be. Obviously, her sibling rivalry hasn't passed quite yet. Get on with living your own life and stop worrying about hers. You'll be way happier in the long run. Me, 40 female, and my husband Sam, 43 male, have 3 kids. After the birth of our youngest son, Sam and I almost never went on a romantic trip alone, as it was very difficult to reconcile for several reasons. When my youngest son turned 18 and moved because of college, I was very excited because we always agreed to go to France to stay in a wonderful hotel and a fancy room because it was my dream, and with 3 children, we couldn't do it totally. My husband then asked to make a surprise. He would run after everything, booking restaurants, booking a hotel, plane ticket. But I told him which hotel I wanted to stay and the type of room, as it was always my dream trip with him. We have an excellent financial condition, so we could easily pay for it. We arrived at the hotel. He spoke to the receptionist and we went to the room. I was in shock when I found my children and mothers waiting on us. My excitement went downhill from there, and honestly, I couldn't hide it, because it wasn't what I imagined it to be, and it got worse when he said that because there were too many people to pay, he got cheaper rooms, and that our son would sleep with us, because it was more cheaper. I tried to keep up appearances, but I gave my husband that look, and when I could, I went to the receptionist and asked for a better room for me. I paid with my service bonus, which is something my husband and I don't share. Agreed between us. My husband was super annoyed, saying that this was a rude thing to do, and that he wanted to have a family time, but couldn't afford something more expensive. In addition to having reacted badly to his surprise, it would be everyone's first time, and he wanted to give this moment for the first time at the same time to everyone. He didn't even want to go to my room. I loved visiting all the places, but having the presence of 5 more people, it was extremely discouraging. I love my children, my mother, and my mother-in-law, but it was my dream to have a romantic trip for two. It is worth saying, every year, except a pandemic, we travel to another country. We have never been to France. The trip was okay. My husband and I were obviously not doing very well. When we got home, he said my attitude of paying for a more expensive suite was childish and made everyone uncomfortable, and that my discouragement spoiled our trip. Am I the a-hole? Extra. Yes, when I said I wanted to go to France, I said I wanted a romantic trip only for two. Extra. As I understand the reason, he said he did it because it would be our first family trip after 2 years without traveling, and that we could do this trip now and do one in a few months, just the two of us. Not the a-hole. Your husband knew exactly what trip you were expecting. He knew what hotel and room you were expecting. He decided to change it, and was upset when you weren't okay with him unilaterally changing the plans. I'm sure his logic was, we do a family trip someplace every year, so this should be that trip. Why wouldn't it be? But if he wanted that to be that logic, it needed to not be a surprise. It needed to be a discussion, because he knew that you guys had waited to do this trip until there were no kids left in the house. His attitude of thinking you had spoiled the trip when he was the one who had is a problem.